to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and as always your host today. My today's guest is my dear friend, creator and founder of the Worldwide Immigrants Association, Diana Tapia. Hi Diana, welcome.
Hi Nina, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, for me too. And I remember when you and I first met, I felt instantly drawn to you because you're such a loving, sparkling person. And then when I heard that you were about to launch the Worldwide Immigrants Association, I just had to invite you to be my guest. I think moving to another country and into another culture is far more than just a move. And I believe it involves a big vision, lots of courage, and also resilience. And maybe probably the patience and inner balance to cope with the challenges that for sure will come up. And so I am totally looking forward to this conversation. And I would like to open it with asking you to tell us a little more about who you are and what you do, how you came to do what you do today, and everything else you would like to share.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. Well, as you just said, I'm an immigrant. That's the first ID card that I got since I arrived to Canada 7 years ago. It's gonna be 8 years in April. I'm a lawyer back in Mexico, and I worked at the Supreme Court for several years. But at the same time, I came to Canada to study French during a certain period. And then I loved the culture and the people and the environment, the lifestyle, etc., etc. So when I went back to Mexico, I felt homesick of Canada, which was super interesting because I never felt homesick while I was here in Canada studying. But when I went back to Mexico, it wasn't that I wasn't happy. I had everything. I had my car. I was, of course, living with my mom because I'm a Latina. So if I wasn't married, I was living with my mom. I had my job. It was stable. I had my friends, all my network, etc. But the things that I found here in Canada, I wasn't finding them there in Mexico. So long story short, I started my process to come as a permanent resident. And after, I don't know, maybe 4 years, because it took me a bit of time to arrange my own life and all the papers and the documentation, etc. After 4 years, I came here on April 1st and established myself as a new member of this society. Of course, being a lawyer, it was very difficult for me to find a job immediately here because there are different, starting because law is different here. They have the common law and the Roman law, of course. And in Mexico, we have Roman law only. So I have to revalidate and to actually go to university again to restart my career. But I never felt a lawyer that much. So I started my master's degree in international law and I failed tremendously.
Really?
Yeah, because, well, let's start by saying that I live in the French area of Canada. Of course, I learned and I studied French before, but it's not the same thing to study it for the lifestyle or to just talking to friends, etc., than going to the university to a master's degree. And I thought I was understanding everything, but when tests and exams came, I failed everything. At the same time, I took my first job as an administrative assistant, believe it or not. And it was a great opportunity for me to show the people there where I started working at, my potential, my desire of success. And of course, I made it very clear that I didn't want to stay in that position for long, you know. So the studies and the first job as an immigrant came together and crashed. Maybe that's why I failed the master's. And with the time, I found out that I was actually starting to grow professionally, and I wasn't needing that much that title that I was pursuing at that moment. So I quit. I was happy, very happy. I felt liberated, and I started focus on my own development here in my new life.
And yeah, I so understand you. I believe law is a language in itself. And then if you have to study it and do exams not within your own mother language, I believe it's a really, really hard thing. And actually this is a beautiful avenue into talking about what happens when you move to a country where people speak a different language. What do you think? How much well, it's probably different for everybody, but I believe that even though we can learn this language before, like I learned English in school, it's never the same than when you are really living there and you realize that a second language is not the same like a first language. So how has it been for you, and what are your experiences with the immigrants you work with when it comes to living in a different language space, which brings also different cultural space?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and speaking about me, it wasn't that hard because I already learned French and English before while I was in Mexico. But as you were saying, it's not the same thing when you learn it at school than when you really face the real world with the real people, and they start expressing themselves, and there are ways and modisms that you don't understand, and maybe you can even take as an offense, for example. Maybe, like I remember one of the first interviews that I made was to become a paralegal. And the lawyer interviewed me, and he told me, "Ton CV n'est pas si pire." That's in French, which means it's not that bad. And I took it very personal because my CV as a lawyer was very impressive. Well, I thought. But then I discovered that here in Quebec, they say "ce n'est pas si pire" when it is actually good. Yeah, you see, so when I was in that interview, I felt so disappointed because I was feeling like a failure completely, but I didn't understand that that expression meant something positive. And I believe a lot of immigrants have to face these kind of things, which after a while become a funny story to tell. I have clients. I have one client from France and another client, for example, from Uganda, this girl from Uganda wants to migrate to Canada, actually, and she's in the IT industry. And sometimes she's also afraid about all these changes, and it is not because she doesn't speak French or English. It is more about their own culture, because they are more open. As we Latinos, we are open and noisy, and so we need to control these things, because sometimes as well our expressions might affect other people without even noticing it.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time in the United States, as you know, and it's funny because the more I learn about being in this culture, the more I actually understand what I don't know. And a friend of mine beautifully put it, they said, if you put all your knowledge in a circle, the circumference of the circle is what you don't know. And the more you grow, the more the amount that you don't know grows as well. And I see it often in the nuances, you know, you get invited and there are certain things that people naturally do and which I don't necessarily know, or there are these little things in language that you kind of get lost and you don't know how somebody means it and so on. And so I totally get it. And also what you said about what people believe you are, or I am, or the girl from Uganda is because she comes from a certain place. Mm-hmm. So for example, I often hear that I must be super on time and reliable because I'm German. I mean, I do my best to do that, but it's interesting how people automatically have a certain expectation.
Yeah.
And so that's actually the next thing that I wanted to ask you. How was it for you and how is it for your clients when they finally get to the place they want to be and they love to be? And then they realize that in some way, it's not exactly how you envision it. There are challenges, and also you run into a picture that somebody else has of you and you don't think that's you.
Oh yeah, oof, completely. Starting, well, with the first part of your question, I believe when we migrate to another country, we always think about the stability that we are gonna get that we didn't have in our country, or the security or the professional opportunities and the economy, etc. And I don't know, people will be friendlier, people are going to be nicer, people is going to be more polite, and we fantasize with that, and they are going to be happier, and we make big castle of imagination of what we want as a country to live in. And then we spend some months, and after we figure out and we find out that the weather is terrible, or we don't like the food, or people is dry and cold, or the opposite. For example, if you come from Germany, where you are very like, well, you're not you, Nina, because you are different. But when you come from Germany, Germans are more focused and serious and professional, etc. And they might, for example, move to a Latin American country, and they might feel like they are invaded in their person because we hug, we yell, we touch, we kiss, and it's too much for everybody. So to try to learn all those things in the time that while you're living there, sometimes it's suffocating. And sometimes people feel like they didn't do the right decision. And they start complaining and comparing and saying, well, yeah, but in my country we have this, or in my country we never did that. And we start like fantasizing again now about our country instead of the country that we are living in. Yeah, and the second part of your question, where people is going to get used to us as well, is the same as I was, like the example of the German person moving to Latin America, or myself as a Mexican in my first job, where I stood there for more than 5 years, and I was super happy. At the beginning, people thought I was very funny and I was very exotic because I was loud and I laughed and I kissed the people and I was touching them. And after a while, I learned that sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. But it's all about the nonverbal language when you see the person that's saying stuff, Steve, or whatever it is. But that comes with the time.
So would you say that quite naturally with moving to a different country and culture comes insecurity? And then the question is, how do you deal with it? I mean, it's like we desire change so much and then it happens. And then suddenly we realize that this feeling of knowing for sure what we want, this feeling of embarking on our vision might be very challenged. So what would you say, or what would you recommend somebody who is spending their, say, first year in their new home and maybe even doubting if it was the right thing to do, to move?
First of all, before you came here to the place that you are right now, when you decided to move, you were sure of the things that you wanted to get when you arrived. If you are not focused on that, you are going to lose it and you're going to get despaired. So you don't want to do that. Instead, take an everyday decision of having the best day and the best life here and now in the place that you chose to live. Because we were very lucky to decide to move to another country and to start a new life, the same life that we always dreamt of. And not everyone has this opportunity because they are afraid of moving to another country, or because they don't really can afford it, or they can't do it, or they don't know the languages and they believe that's very difficult. Yeah. It doesn't matter what's the thing. Not everybody has the opportunities that we immigrants have to decide, oh yeah, I was born in Mexico, but I'm actually deciding to live in Canada. So if you remember that decision, it will be easier. Of course, by patience, but just remember the decision that you rule. You are the producer of your life, and in this production, you decided to make your story in another place.
And would you say it helps to really do things that help to get to know people, like, for example, going to a yoga studio or in a sports club? I mean, I guess everybody's also looking for work, but I imagine that when the moment comes that homesickness for where somebody comes from sets in, that there might be the tendency to do a lot of telephone calls there, and to and then maybe also to encounter the other people who love you saying, why don't you come back, and why did you leave in the first place? Isn't home the best? And I imagine it maybe even more difficult then. What's your thought on this?
It's a fight. It's an everyday fight, because at the beginning, of course, you're attached to your old life, and your calls now, thanks to Skype or Zoom or whatever other FaceTime, etc., our ways of communication are easier. So we can just feel homesick and call them and ask them how are they going, etc., or tell them our story for the day, whatever it is. But then with the time, you start noticing that people is going on. They didn't leave. You left. So the life that you left is still moving on, and your friends are getting married, or your friends are having kids, or if you have brothers or sisters, they are getting married or having kids or birthdays, or your parents are celebrating their 17th anniversary, whatever it is, and you will start seeing that you are not able to go to every event. And at the beginning, they will start inviting you, but at the end, they will just assume that you're no longer part of that community. It's not that they are gonna stop loving you or you're gonna stop being friends or family, but they are going to acknowledge that you no longer belong to that tribe. So here, the most important, I believe, as you were saying, besides having a good job or finding the good job or opportunity, finding a new family, new people who you can share this kind of feelings. Doesn't matter if they are immigrants or not, because you can have friends who are not immigrants, but they are very open and they will be there for you to listen to you when you're feeling down or whatever it is. But it's very important not to close ourselves and not to stay in our place. Go to classes, language classes, dancing classes, things that you love to do, and you will find people who are more or less the same like you, and you will be able to share experiences and other different things, and you will start doing and making your plans with them.
Yeah, and then everyday life becomes that doesn't feel like everyday life, becomes it more and more. And I remember exactly what you said when I lived in Alamogordo, New Mexico for 3 years. Life in Germany went on. I mean, I knew I would eventually go back, so that's maybe a little bit different, but I still realized that if I do not wholeheartedly throw myself into my new American life, even though I didn't know how it worked, I would be torn between these two worlds. And it so helped. I remember when I made the first friendships, when I knew how life worked, where to go shopping, where to get my drinking water and everything else. And also when then maybe in a telephone call, I could share these things that were, say, my family or friends were exotic, but for me were starting to be my daily life. I realized how much I learned in this short time. I mean, it was super stressful, but I think there were rarely times in which I learned so much in such a short time. And I started also to be a little proud of it. Yeah, but where I wanted to take us back to moving to another country. And I remember one of the last times we spoke, and I was considering with you how it is to move to, say, Canada or the United States, and you said to me, I needed to be very sure why I wanted this so much and what it would bring with it. And to me, this was really helpful because it made me think in different ways. And I think for everybody who has a big vision to move to another country and culture, I think it's important to have this big dream and this heart that is so full, but not to kind of embark on it blindfoldedly. So can you share a little bit about what you would recommend somebody does before making the decision to move to another country?
Yeah, I've had several clients in that situation. And for example, the day that you and I talked, I remember that you told me, yeah, because in California everything is so beautiful and blah. And I told you, well, Nina, are you in love with the vacation lifestyle that you are living while you're there? Because of course, when you go there and you spend money on nice restaurants or go to different very nice places and you are not actually working or doing the everyday life, of course you fall in love with it, and of course you are going to want more about that. And so one of the first things that I say to my clients all the time is, why are you willing to move to another country? Do you know that country? Have you been there? Do you like its structure? Do you know the professional fields? Do you fit in them? Because one of the biggest problems with immigrants is that they move to another country without knowing if their job market is good for them. For example, here in Montreal, it's all about technology and entertainment. So maybe, for example, if you're painter or an IT guy, you will fit immediately. But maybe if you are, I don't know, a lawyer, for example, or other kind of disciplines that don't fill with the actual biggest job market, will be more difficult. So learn about that country, the city that you want to live in. Do you know that the weather is very cold or very hot? The more you know about the place that you want to move in, the less surprised you will be. And then you will want to live there even with those defects. It's like when you get married to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't say, oh, he's my Prince Charming and he's just so perfect and he's so, no, he also snores, he is loud, maybe he's not punctual, whatever it is, but you will love him or her even with those things. So when you know your country and the city that you want to live in very, very well, as much as you can, there will not be surprises and you will embrace it better.
Yeah, I think so too. So what I didn't ask you actually until now was, when you shared your story, what made you, how did you get the wish to found the Worldwide Immigrants Association, and how did it all come about?
Yeah, it's super, it's super funny because I actually, well, after my first experience, my working experience, I started climbing in the company that I was working at, and I became a partnerships manager, and I was working for the entertainment industry, and I established partnerships with the big brands like Universal and Warner Brothers, and travel around the world. I went to Germany, I went to France, I went to Chile, I went to United States, etc. I went to a lot of countries. I was more kind of a business person, like an executive or something like that. But while I was working for a company, receiving these beautiful experiences and salary, I had other friends or people asking me for advice and telling me how overwhelmed they felt because they were not finding a job, or they were feeling homesick or lost in their decision, or maybe wanting to move back again. And I start helping them. It was very organic, you know. But I always wanted to help a lot of people, but I never thought that I had the tool with me. Like I always wanted to help someone with something. But after, one of my friends told me, Diana, you would be excellent doing this. And then another friend, Diana, you should. It's because you do. And then I started feeling, of course, I was always passionate about helping my friends and other people, but it was so natural to me that I never thought of this as something bigger. So I was not able to continue like that. I decided to take the decision and quit my job and start working full time on this project, which has been a beautiful experience. I've met a lot of wonderful people, immigrants and non-immigrants, immigrants who are sharing their stories with us, and non-immigrants who want to help and are always looking to, I don't know, introduce me to someone else, or, you know. So this is why I did it. I believe it was also a personal need, because I've also felt like I need a community to share all these things and to say, well, I'm feeling unstable right now. Oh, well, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of other people who are feeling like this as well. And sometimes are very good, but sometimes are very bad. And we understand what we are going through. So to have a space like this, I believe is something that's needed. I haven't found anything else in the market just right now, like while I was researching. And I said, well, if there's no community, let's make it. And that's it.
And I think you created something extraordinary, and it's so, I mean, I'm just so impressed, and I believe it will help so many people. And I think you're just so perfect for it. So can you please share what the Worldwide Immigrant Association is about, and what people can expect who would like to know more about it or even be part of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Worldwide Immigrants Association is an online community of immigrants around the world who are sharing their knowledge and their experiences and supporting each other. We have several sections inside the Worldwide Immigrants Association. We have interviews with successful immigrants, videoed and written, sharing their stories. And we also have other immigrants who are experts in something, sharing their knowledge and advice. For example, we have coaches, we have other writers as well, and like all of them are immigrants, and they are sharing their best experiences for you to have a resource. All the participants, this is very important, all the participants are immigrants, and this is because I also want to make a place where they can show to the world how competent and how useful to the world they are. And I'm just tired a little bit about thinking of an immigrant not being productive or contributing to our society. Actually, there are big names who are immigrants, and I want to share their stories and their knowledge too. Inside the Worldwide Immigrants Association, which is the free site, there's a membership site. It's the member zone, which just opened last Friday. And it's a membership-based resource for immigrants as well, who want to know more and who want to get more empowered and who want to learn more about how to live a less stressful and more successful life. And we have master classes with experts, workshops with specialists, special gifts for our members, a directory of experts for them to reach them out. We are going to open a private Facebook group so we can share our stories. We have a Q&A session every month, and we have as well a worldwide coffee via Zoom, so we can network and connect and tell, complain and celebrate together. That's the WIA about.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things in life is to know or to have a group of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be family, that you feel like it's your tribe. And this tribe can change over time. And I feel when we can be around like-minded people, people that face the same challenges, people that have similar wishes and visions, people that are maybe a few steps further down the way and can give advice, is so much easier than embarking on change on our own, because friends are reminding us of who we are. They are holding us accountable. They are giving us a hug when it's needed, or they are saying, come on, you wanted this, so now get on. Take on your courage, walk your steps, because it's rewarding. And I believe that the Worldwide Immigrants Association is such a place, and that it can be, that even though it's virtual, it can really feel like home for people.
Yeah, well, that's my biggest wish. Sorry, Nina. That's my biggest wish, to become a real family. And eventually, when we are thousands of immigrants together, we will experience the big strengths, and we will be able to look at it physically, you know, because now we are spread around the world, just like little lights in the map. But when you reunite the people and when you see how big we can become here and here, and how useful we are to the society, I believe that's important, and I don't know, I believe we are going to be a good resource because it comes from collaboration. It's not that people who are going to participate in the Worldwide Immigrants Association are just going to be members. they are going to push each other. And if this one doesn't know, then this one will tell him. So we are always going to help each other.
Oh, I totally like the idea that people can also meet in person, of course. And also, I mean, in our modern world, people move to different places in their lives. So say somebody immigrates from, like you, from Mexico to Canada, but in a few years, maybe you and your husband, you move somewhere else. Within the Worldwide Immigrants Association, you can then see who else of your tribe is where you're going to move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's basically a global family, which is, I mean, that's incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, it is, because actually there are many free groups on Facebook for immigrants, but they are very regionalized. For example, I belong to several groups of Mexicans in Canada, or Mexican immigrants, or whatever the name are. But no, this group is actually global, and it will have all kinds of nationalities. So that's the big research that, for example, if you're looking at, for an expert, like a psychologist or a coach, or I don't know, he or she doesn't really have to be in the place that you are right now. They can be in Germany or wherever it is, and you can meet and work with them. Or if you're moving to another place, maybe that friend that you met there in the WIA will help you look for apartments, or will help you check your CV, or will help you with a lot of stuff that you don't really have the resources because you don't know anybody else in that country.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. And while you were speaking, I was also imagining that the Worldwide Immigrants Association being a place, a home for everyone from everywhere, this means that there can also people meet virtually or in person who would maybe not necessarily do this, because still, unfortunately, in this world, there are certain judgments about who and how people of this country are, or that, I don't know, this nationality doesn't go well with another nationality. And suddenly you discover that it's basically always the human experience that we share, and that everybody has so much in common with everybody else, that I find it also a very beautiful idea for creating, or say, enhancing peace on earth. I mean,
hopefully, yeah, hopefully. This is, I don't know, a bit of contribution to the world. And of course, the people who are going to subscribe and involve more in the WIA are going to be people, like-minded people, who are willing to know other cultures, meet other people, learn about others, contribute, help, support, understand, empower. I don't know, I can bring a lot of verbs there, but, and everything involves collaboration. So it's a safe place, because the people who are going to belong in here are just that kind of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I would like to go back to, say, to the person that is embarking on this change. And you have written such a beautiful article on your site about change. And there's one paragraph that really touched me, because I feel so resonating with it. And it is, you say, the responsibility of your happiness is yours. Yes, I know it sounds very demanding on my part to tell you this, but it's true. Nobody is in charge of your happiness more than yourself. And later on you say change is the chance you have to choose to live amazing things. This is so beautiful, and I think it's good to know we have this amazing network who helps us to become who we want to be, but that it's still our personal life, and that we have to make it happen, maybe with the help of others. So
yeah, of course, it's with the help of others. We are a social animal. we cannot live without each other. But we also have to understand that without us, ourselves, we cannot do anything. If we don't understand that we are moving to another place or we are going through any kind of change, it depends on us how we see it. As it can be the worst thing ever in your life, this change that you're passing through right now, or it can become a chance to choose to live a better life. It's a chance. Just right now, you got fired. This is the chance to have a better job. You got divorced. This is the chance to find another person or live finally alone with someone who you didn't love anymore. Or did you change a place because you were not able to afford the place that you're living in? Well, this is the chance for you to economize and have more resources. You know, every change is a chance. And if we see it like that, we will be able to produce the life that we always wanted all the time.
Yes, yes, I so agree. So if our listeners would like to find out more about you and the Worldwide Immigrants Associations, where can they go and how can they find you?
Well, they can go directly to the website, www.worldwideimmigrants.com. And otherwise, if they are very social media people, then they can go to our Facebook page. You can just look at it as Worldwide Immigrants Association. And we also have Instagram at Worldwide Immigrants. I believe that's it, for instance. So there are places how to find us. Otherwise, ask Nina. She will give you the resources. And we will be very happy to see you there.
Yeah, and we will link to all important places right below this interview so everybody can easily find you. And so I wanted to ask you before I close this beautiful conversation, is there anything that needs to be mentioned here and now that we didn't think of?
Well, yeah, something that is very important to say is that the Worldwide Immigrants Association is not only for new immigrants or immigrants who are already established. You can be someone who is wondering if they want to move to another country or is willing to become an immigrant, but you're not very sure. You can still belong to us because there are resources and information that it will be very helpful for you in case you decide to start your process. And if you've been already an immigrant for, I don't know, more than 10 years or whatever it is, you're also welcome because we know that we always pass through changes being immigrants, and we always pass through like some transitions that put us in imbalance. So it's also nice to have this kind of resource handy and people who also been there and done that to share with.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Thank you so much for this interview, Nina. I really liked it a lot. I love you so much, and thanks.
Well, me too. I love you, and thank you so much for sharing this time and space with me. I've been so looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
And so I'm saying goodbye, everybody, and always remember to take the driver's seat of the car called your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It's my pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye, Diana. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Nina.